This is a song which is a couple of hundred years old, about events from more than 800 years ago, which is quite topical and up to date. It's about the danger for an attractive young woman of attracting the attention of a powerful man. This version is from the singing of Hetty West, with some extra verses from the American tradition added on. I have a sister, young Clifford said, a sister no one knows. She has a colour all in her cheeks, like a drop of blood in snow. She has a waist, a slender waist, like to my silver cane. I would not for 10,000 worlds have King Henry know her name. King Henry in his secret bower, he sat so close and still, and every word that young Clifford said he has wrote down in a bill. The first fair line she looked upon, oh, she began to smile. The next line she has looked upon, the tears run down an aisle. Oh, cursed be my brother Clifford, oh, cursed may he be. Why can't he dote on his hawks and hounds, but he must dote on me? Go fetch for me my planet book, that's in the secret room. Go fetch for me my planet book, so that I may read my doom. The planet book it was brought down and laid upon her knee. It said the time would come to pass when poisoned she would be. Oh, bring to me my servant maid to comb and plait my hair, and fetch for me my stable lad to saddle the grey mare. With 24 noble lords she's rode to meet the king, and as they passed through London gate, how bright the bells did ring. Oh, cursed be my brother Clifford, oh, cursed may he be. Why can't he dote on his hawks and hounds, but he must dote on me? Young Clifford's sister was Rosamund Clifford, and King Henry was Henry II of England. And there are two stories about what happened next. The first is that they had a relationship, and to keep this secret, Henry built a labyrinth at Woodstock near Oxford and kept Rosamund in the centre of the labyrinth, guarded by one of his most loyal knights. But Eleanor of Aquitaine, Henry's wife, discovered this, travelled to Oxford, dealt with a loyal knight by the simple expedient of knifing him, made her way to the centre of the labyrinth, and forced Rosamund to drink poison, and she died. Henry and Eleanor lived happily ever after. There is absolutely no historical or archaeological record for this story. The other version is that they had a relationship, which Henry admitted to in public, and Rosamund retired to a convent, which was a comfortable and safe place for an upper-class woman to live in those days, and died of natural causes aged about 30. The historical evidence is sketchy, but that seems to be the most reliable version. But a jealous queen, a labyrinth, a double murder, poison. Ooh, it's got to make a good song, hasn't it? And indeed it did. There are lots of broadside versions of the lamentable history of Fair Rosamund and Queen Eleanor. Here's one from the early 19th century, but there are certainly printed versions back to the 18th century. And here you can see Queen Eleanor forcing Rosamund to drink the poison. This version is more than 100 couplets, and it's to the tune of The Flying Fleet. Well, I don't know that tune, and the version's a bit long, so here's a shorter prose version by Mariette Edgar, the 1930s answer to Lucy Worsley, with illustrations by John Hassell. You've heard of Henry II and the story of how he got fond of one of his customers' daughters, a lass called the Fair Rosamund. It was a lovely affair while it lasted. The course of true love ran serene, till some nosy Parkering varlet started carrying tales to the Queen. The Queen was at first quite incredulous. She said, "What a tale to invent! The King would not stoop to such baseness? At any rate, not during Lent." But she picked up a doublet one morning that he'd left on the bedside settee. It had 3 golden hairs on the shoulder and a strong smell of soie de Paris. She went to the King in a passion and showed him this evidence clear, and she swore by her distaff and wimple she'd not have none of that there. She said, "If I catch that young woman, she'd leave no more hairs on your coat. For stealing of other folks' monarchs, I'd give her a swim in the moat." So Henry took her off to the country, to an old-fashioned mansion of his, with a Hampton Court maze in the garden that he'd built for occasions like this. The Queen was not fooled for a moment. She knew all about Henry's ways. She slipped off herself the next morning and secretly watched that there maze. She was hiding in the macra-paca when Rosie came out for the milk, and she fixed to her dress as she passed her the end of a bobbin of silk. Poor Rosie went back, unsuspecting the trail she was leaving behind, and the Queen followed after her, gloating at what she expected to find. Well, the King was just toasting a muffin, and Rosie was mashing the tea, when in walks the Queen, her face gleaming with an expression of malevolent glee. In one hand she had a bowl of strong poison, in the other a glittering knife. The King sort of goggled a moment, and then turned and said, "Rose, meet the wife." She thrust out the poison at Rosie and held out the knife with its point. It was clear she had only 2 choices, the soup or a cut off the joint. Fair Rosamund pleaded for mercy. She said, "What you've heard is not true. Our relationship was purely platonic," a line which in those days was quite new. The King told the same tale as Rosie. "I was at Pizza Express in Woodstock." "And if that's not the truth, Queen," he cried, "may I die on this spot where I'm standing." And as he said it, he skipped to one side. Well, the Queen in the long run believed them, but to save further messing around, she packed Rosie off to a convent and had the maze burnt to the ground. And that's the truth.